Today we are going to review factoring. So our first problem is 36r q to the second minus 42r to the third q to the fourth. Because this is a two-term problem, all I have to do is look at what can I take out of both parts. So what goes into 36 and 42? What's the largest number? In this case, it's going to be a 6. Then I start looking at the letters. My first letter is R. I have an R to the first and an R to the third. The lowest exponent is the one that I can take out. So in this case, it'll be an R to the first, or just plain old R. The next letter is a Q, and my options are Q to the second or Q to the fourth. The lowest one will be Q to the second. Then I have parentheses for what is left over. So for the large numbers, I have to divide. So 36 divided by 6 leaves me with another 6. R to the first, if I took one out, I don't have any left with this 6. Q to the second, again, if I take 2 away from 2, I don't have any left. I keep the minus sign in between, and then 42 divided by 6 gives me 7. R to the third, if I take 1 away from R to the third, I'm left with R to the second. Q to the fourth, if I take 2 out, I'm left with Q to the second. And that is my final answer for number 1. Number 2, I now have 3 terms, which means I have to use the x method. So I have x to the second plus 25x minus 54. Because there is no number in front of x to the second, this will be the shorter way of factoring. I take the last number, which is negative 54, and put it on the top of the x. The middle number goes to the bottom. Now I have to find 2 numbers for the left and right sides that multiply to the top number, but add to the bottom number. So 2 numbers that multiply to 54 and add to 25. You might need your calculator to work through a couple, so you maybe guess and check. When I did this, I found my factors to be a positive 27 and a negative 2. Again, because there's no number in front of my x to the second, I can go directly into parentheses. My first parenthesis will be x plus 27, because my first factor was a positive 27. My next parenthesis will be x minus 2, because my last factor was a negative 2. This is my final answer for problem 2. Problem 3 has 4x to the second minus 21x minus 18. This is a 3-part problem, so that means I'm going to have to use an x. However, it differs from problem 2 because now there's a 4 in front of the x to the second. So that changes how I get the very top number up here. I now have to multiply the very first number, 4, with the very last number, 18. So 4 times negative 18 gives me negative 72 for my top number of the x. The middle number is still the bottom number, so negative 21. Again, I need to find 2 numbers for the left and right side that multiply to negative 72, but add to negative 21. I did a little bit of guess and check, and I found that negative 24 and a positive 3 work perfectly for this problem. Now, because there is a number in front of the x to the second, this will be a longer way of factoring. And what I mean by that is I have to rewrite the problem with 4 parts. So that means I'm going to split this middle guy into 2. So I will still have 4x to the second minus 24x. I get the 24 from over here. Now my next factor is a positive 3, so plus 3x minus 18. So I now have 4 different parts. So if I split this down the middle, I can have 2 parts on one side, 2 parts on the other side. If I cover up this first side, I look at 4x squared minus 24x. I have to figure out what's the highest number that goes into 4x squared and 24x. And my answer is 4x. Now what's left behind on this side is x minus 6. Now I cover up this side and I look at this other side. 3x minus 18. What goes into 3 and 18? Well, the highest number I can take out of both is 3. So I'm left with x minus 6. Now when I take a look at this step, I have to make sure the parentheses on both sides of my squiggly line are exactly the same. And they are, x minus 6 and x minus 6. So my final answer is going to be 2 sets of parentheses. In one of these parentheses, I'm going to put what was outside on each side. So 4x and a positive 3. On the other one, I have to put my insides, which is why it's important that they're identical. So x minus 6, and that's my final answer for number 3. Number 4 is another 3-part problem, which means we're going to have an x. It's negative 2x to the second plus 16x minus 24. Now you might notice all of these 3 numbers are even, which means you can take out at least a 2 from each of them. And because this very first one is negative, I'm going to take out a negative 2. That leaves me with x to the second minus 8x plus 12. So I took out that negative 2. That makes all of these numbers smaller. When you take out a number out here, you can actually ignore it for the rest of the problem until the very end. I'm going to take this 12 and put it at the top. I'm going to put the negative 8 down below, and I have to find 2 factors that multiply to positive 12 and add to negative 8. So my answer should be negative 6 and negative 2. Because there is no number in between the x to the second and the parenthesis sign, I can go right into my factors in this problem. I don't have to do the longer way of factoring. My first one will be x minus 6. My second one will be x minus 2. This would normally be my final answer, except for the guy that I took out has to stay on the outside. So I just have to slide them on down. So my final answer is negative 2, x minus 6, x minus 2.